Hi, I'm Chris James, and you're watching Healthy Alternative. Today, we're going to be talking about what hydrates better than water. Today, I want to dig a little deeper into really how to nourish the cells and give it the resources it needs. And I haven't done a video talking about water in a while, and I just wanted to kind of do a refresher because the importance of understanding water can never be overstated. So, what's going to hydrate better than water? The simple answer is fruit, vegetables, plants. There's something that I think we do not understand about our modern world. First, I want you guys to understand there are glitches in the matrix, if you will. Okay, because I don't study this, I can't tell you exactly where we are currently in our thinking. But at one point in time, there was a belief that you could determine the age of a tree based on the amount of rings it had. So you would cut the tree open, and based on the amount of rings it had on the trunk, you could tell how many years old it was. And then they found this mysterious tree that the people in the area knew to be hundreds of years old, but based on the amount of rings it found when they cut the tree open, it looked as if the tree should have been much younger, much younger. Okay, so that baffled the scientists because they thought they understood, hey, this is something we can use to determine age of things. As a matter of fact, one thing that I have noticed just looking at different research, I've noticed that when it comes to science, what they think they could do to determine how old something is, it usually fails at some point. There are ways that people believe are like the ultimate ways to like date something, like carbon dating and things of that nature. But when you really look into it, there's like limitations to all of this. You can't really accurately date something. And I think part of the reason why they have a hard time understanding the age of things is because they don't understand the regenerative properties that cells have, right? No matter what the cells are, plant cells, human cells, animal cells, whatever. I don't think we fully understand cells, so we don't understand how they can regenerate and slow down, what we call old age. Understanding that old age has nothing to do with, what your birthday is, but everything to do with your level of health. So one of the most important things you could do for your body as it relates to your slowing down age or making yourself appear more youthful is by giving your body proper hydration. We talk about this all the time. But we do talk about water a lot. We talk about drink a gallon of water. We talk about drink, distilled water, sun charger distilled water, infuse it with, key limes or lemons or cucumbers or something like that, and help to hydrate your water. The reason why I have to tell you all to take your water through this tedious process is because we don't get the water from our food. Typically, in a natural world, in the old world, the world that our ancestors would have lived in, they would have got the majority of their water from their food, and they would have used the water in the lake or river to clean and, clean their clothes, wash their body, things of that nature. Of course, they would still take some by mouth. They would transport some for various reasons. But I think we somehow have forgotten that was the main way we got our water versus nowadays where we're getting our water from the tap or a bottle or whatever. So what's important to understand is plants or all plant material manufactures what's called H3O2. You can also look at, I call it cellular water, fourth phase of water. This is the water that the cells use. This is different from H2O. When you drink water, when you drink H2O, your body has to actually use energy and convert that into something that can be used by the cells. H2O does not go into the cells. So this is why I always tell you guys to do something extra to your water. However, if we can be more diligent about taking in plant material, we can reduce how much water we actually drink. And this is something that I've stayed away from talking about for a while because I was nervous that people would misconstrue or they would start dehydrating themselves, especially when they were doing different fasting methods and things, because you can't just simply stop drinking water and say, oh, I'm going to go eat an apple instead. Because it's not as if the fruit that we eat now has a proper amount of water content. There's a common comparison that people make between, the macro and the micro, the human body versus the world. And it's believed that the world is 72 to 75% water. Our bodies are 72 to 75% water, and fruit and things, plant material is 72 to 75% water. It's like this common theme. The reality is there is way more water in this world than what we have been taught there is. The reason that's important is because the comparison that people are making between the earth and the body, I think it's correct. I think that makes sense. Whatever created us, whether it's the Big Bang, God, or Allah, no matter what it was that created us, it's the same thing that created the earth. It's the same thing that created the animals, the same thing that created the plants. So if the earth is vastly more than 75% water, let's say it's closer to 85 or 90% water, which is my belief. I think it's much closer to 90% water just based on my research. But if that's true, then that means we should be eating foods that are 85, 90% water content as well. Now that's difficult to do in modern times because our food doesn't have the proper water content. Why? Because we manufacture our food. We don't grow it. We don't grow it in the gardens. We don't pick it wild. So when you start studying gardening, and it's something I've been doing recently, you start to understand that the same pharmacology that they apply to us and how they approach like healing the body or treating the body, they do that to the plants and the earth as well. So if you guys can imagine that, you go to the doctor, you're sick for whatever, and they give you a drug, a chemical, and we already know that it usually does more damage than good. Guess what? They're doing that exact same thing to our crops. So the water content of the crops is not what it should be. And this is why I always tell you guys, just drink your gallon instead, instead of just completely depending on the vegetables and stuff, because I don't want anybody to be lacking for water. But you can get so much more efficient water from your vegetables and your fruits. So we have to increase fruits and vegetable intake. We have to decrease the foods that dehydrate us. So there's all these foods that, dehydrate us. And the goal here is to create a new balance where you're eating more hydrating foods and drinking and eating less dehydrating foods, and also drinking less dehydrating liquids. Coffee. People always get upset at me when I tell them, either cut back on coffee or stop drinking coffee. There's all these studies. There's all this science to prove why drinking coffee is good for you. Well, there's also studies to prove why drinking wine is good for you. As a matter of fact, there is a portion of the medical industry that thinks that it's okay to give a pregnant woman wine to determine whether or not she's truly in labor. So there's science to back up anything out there. We can't just rely on science. And one of the things that I fear for our future is it seems like people's ability to think critically is being diminished more and more. Some of you guys might be familiar with like Chat GPT. You can see with this AI, and just AI in general, not just Chat GPT, but just in general, you're seeing that you don't even have to like be able to formulate sentences anymore. You can just to Chat GPT. You could just say some stuff to Chat GPT and then ask it to give you a certain output, and it'll do it. It'll unjumble all your nonsense and write this elegant email or this elegant paper or whatever for you. And so I think what's happening is we're losing our critical thinking ability. We are demonizing anecdotal evidence, and we're completely disconnected from observable reality. We have a system that's designed to teach us to not trust our senses. Okay? You're not allowed to trust your eyes anymore. If they tell you, they'll tell you the sky is blue because it's reflecting the water, right? They'll tell you the sky is blue because now I don't know what the current science is. This is when I was a child. It might be different. It might be the same. Who knows? But they'll tell you the sky is blue because it's reflecting the water. And yet, none of y'all can go and scoop me out a cup of blue water. See what I'm saying? Now, they'll give you some fancy reason why what they're saying is correct. But your senses are telling you the water is the water is clear, the sky is blue. That doesn't make sense. And what science will do is it will bend reality to make that make sense. They did it with the Big Tobacco did it, Big Sugar did it. We recently saw it with this whole COVID thing. So we have to be diligent about utilizing our natural senses. What do we hear? What do we taste? What do we smell? What do we experience? What are we experiencing? And we have to allow that to kind of lead us. And we have to get back to using our gut because, they say the gut is the mind. They say it's the second brain. The gut is lined with brain cells. When you look at the development of a child, when it's a fetus, it's still in a mother's womb, the gut is one of the first things, if not the first thing. I think it's actually the first thing that develops, your gut. Now, you would think that it would be your brain. You would think that if your brain is your main command center, it's the control center, it controls and commands everything else. You would think that the body would develop the brain first, but it actually develops the gut. So what is that saying? The gut has more processing power. It has the ability to do more work than the brain does. But our guts are constantly busy digesting food. So we don't have access to all those resources because it's busy. It's doing other things. So what we need to do is start giving our body the resource it needs to be efficient in the way of water. And water is going to, the H3O2 is going to allow the cells to produce energy. And that energy is going to be used to do everything else. It's you could look at it as gas. It's essentially gasoline for the cells. Okay. And we don't get enough of it. And there's not nearly enough emphasis on water. And there's not nearly enough research presented to the mass populace about water. And there's not nearly enough clear information, like what direction should I actually be going? How much water should I be drinking? You guys shouldn't really have to come to an alternative source like AHA to find out about water. That should be something that's taught in school, and yet it's not. So I want you guys to be aware of it. We're going to start drinking more water. We're going to start eating more water. And now it's time to start being diligent about sourcing. I just saw an article talking about how Whole Foods is sourcing their food from China. Now, we all know Whole Foods from before it was acquired by Amazon. And I remember thinking, because I know Amazon is the devil. I know they're convenient. Listen, I got a Prime account too. But I know they're the devil. I know they are. And when Whole Foods got acquired by Amazon, I knew that the quality of products was going to suffer. I didn't know exactly what was going to happen, how it was going to happen. But let's just say that a lot of the fundamental things that we knew we got through Whole Foods, they're no longer true. They're owned by a different company. It's no different from when YouTube very first got built and then Google bought it. Okay, it became a completely different platform. So Whole Foods, you used to be able to get local organic food. Now they're importing stuff from China and just calling it local or calling it organic. And the thing that's crazy about it is no one's regulating this. So the only way for us to really be sure about what we're consuming is to grow it ourselves. When I was fortunate enough to see my grandfather growing, he had a nice big garden behind his garage in the backyard. And as a child, I guess I just wasn't interested enough to really dig into that. It was a garden. I mean, life was so different back then. And for whatever reason, it was never anything that was taught to me. Like, hey, you should make sure to have a garden. Maybe it was assumed that we was going to have gardens. I don't know. But there was never really any education for how to garden. But I used to love watching my grandpa go back there, and he would pick a tomato off his garden and just eat it. And I always thought it was weird. He'd eat tomatoes like apples. And then come to find out tomatoes were fruits, because I always looked at them as vegetables, and it's just all very confusing for me as a child. But I love that I'm getting back to my roots and gardening, and I encourage you all to do the same, because in the next 5 to 10 years, things are going to change rapidly when it comes to our financial industry, when it comes to our food industry. There are a lot of things that most of you are probably not aware of that's going on behind the scenes to alter our food. And this is happening the same way it happened 20 years ago when, y'all remember when there was no such thing as conventional or organic? I know a lot of y'all, the audience, I know you guys are a little older. You remember when there was it was just fruit. It was just an apple. It wasn't a conventional apple or a conventional grape. It was just an apple, and everything had seeds in it. And now you've got the seedless stuff. You got the stuff that tastes like Starburst and cotton candy. You've got the stuff that's been manipulated to grow bigger and sweeter. You know what I mean? Like, we live in a completely different world. And if that happened and you were completely oblivious to it, what I'm trying to get you to understand is it's happening again. It's happening again. A major shift is happening. So why is this all important? Why does it even matter? Well, that shift that happened 20 or 30 years ago directly correlates with the increase of disease in our country, in America, especially. You go to other countries, they don't have these problems. They still have their problems, trust me. But America's a very special problem. And I'm doing my best to make you all aware so you can get prepared, so you're not caught with your pants down. And there's many different ways that you go about, starting a garden. You don't need much space and you don't need much effort. You just need to take some time and energy and put it towards it. Even if it's just growing a small tomato plant, it's learning the skill that's important. Because once you know you could do it, that's empowering. And I want to empower you all. So let's start eating more fruits and vegetables. Continue to drink your water. Continue to get away from the dehydrating foods and the foods that are taking water out of your system. Let's be diligent about sourcing our food. Hey, once a week, twice a month, go to the farmer's market. Make a thing out of it. Take your children. Maybe they've never been. Maybe they've never even had fresh fruit and vegetables. There's a lot of inner city children that eat everything out of a can. They don't know where anything comes from. You might be surprised. Your children might be one of them. Maybe you're one of them. Let's learn, educate, find out about some of the different options that are available, and really take control over our future. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed that video. If you did, don't forget the thumbs up button. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe. And as always, the application of knowledge is power. And I'll see you all next time.